Hello everyone, welcome to a super special new comeback edition of Rollin' Rambles. Today I'm testing out a microphone. Some company in China was nice enough to send me a really expensive fancy pants wireless microphone, and I'm giving it a try. It's over there, can you see? Oh yeah, it is in the shot. That's real cute. It's a shotgun mic. It's a nifty little thing, and this is basically me testing it out. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, look at me. I can count into a microphone that's in the shot. I'm very special. That's what happens when Based Santa gets bored. What are we going to talk about today? I think it would be fun to talk about tariffs. Politics. Of course he's going to come back with politics, because, you know, what else am I going to talk about? Tariffs. People are so stupid. It amazes me how stupid people really are, because nobody seems to understand how tariffs actually work. It is surprising to me that people are so dumb that they can be completely overtaken by these thought parasites preached by certain people. You could almost call them cancer memes. The idea that a tariff is somehow just a thing that you pay more money and that's it. It's a tax on you. First of all, that's rich coming from the same people who have no problem whatsoever ratcheting up taxes all day long, because never talk about cutting spending, guys. Cutting spending, bad idea. Instead, what we have to do is get more tax money. Who are we getting this tax money from? Oh yes, the super wealthy, the ultra rich. And how are we going to do that? Well, there are only so many ways you can legally do that at all. And one of those ways is income tax, or corporate income tax, or whatever. You've got to siphon that tax off somewhere. And you can't just tax money sitting in a bank account, because then you're basically stealing from everyone, and that'll get you cut out of your political career faster than you can say, huh? What happened? So, tariffs are not like normal taxes. And the thing with tariffs versus well, let's just be honest. I'm going to go ahead and say the L word. Leftists, or liberals if you want to go the old talk radio way, or Democrats if you want to be completely accurate, because let's face it, when we talk about leftists, we're really just talking about the Democrat Party in the United States. At least because I don't know anything outside of the United States, because I'm a dumb American. What do I know? Why are you listening to me? Go listen to somebody who's definitely smarter than me. Tariffs and taxes. So you think you can tax the rich, but I'm not going to go over this in depth in a video. The bottom line is, if you tax the rich pass the taxes on to everybody below them, and a tax on the rich becomes a tax on the middle class. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's always been. It's passed through taxation. All you've done is take the tax that normally you'd be honest about and slap me across the face with on my income tax form yearly. And instead of doing that, now you've given it to someone else who makes the stuff I want. And now they just increase the price of the stuff that I want by the amount that you're now charging them extra. So I'm paying it in secret taxes instead of in taxes that I see immediately. And that fools a lot of people, because if they don't see it, they don't believe it exists. Which is a sad, sad statement. But it does exist. And the other side of it is these tariffs. They are a form of taxation. And guess what? All that stuff I just said, it's not directly related to tariffs. And tariffs, at this point, the ones that Trump is trying to push, aren't even actually about taxation in the first place. So let me explain tariffs in a way that can be understood by a normal human being. The way that tariffs work, you have industries in your country that produce things. Now, ideally, we have, say, farmers, and they produce various products on their farms and sell those products to us, the other people that are around them. And ideally, those farmers would produce 100% of what we need, no more, no less. They can sell everything to us, and there'll be zero waste, and so on. That's not how the real world works. Nope. Instead of the farmer making 100% of what we need, no more, no less, a lot of times farmers can produce more than is needed in the markets that they can easily access. So let's say you have a large-scale farming operation. You make way more stuff than you can sell locally, and the market's pretty saturated. There are other people making, let's say, growing tomatoes, and there are other people that are also growing tomatoes. It's tomatoes, they grow all over the place. So there's too many tomatoes. But there are some countries around the world that can't grow tomatoes. So in an ideal world, once the tomato market is saturated, the tomato producers can continue to scale up their operations and sell the tomatoes elsewhere. Except, there's not necessarily always a market elsewhere. The problem does not come with these things where one country has these things and another country has those things. Not every country has every kind of natural resource and in the same quantity. You know, it'd be great if there was a one-to-one deal with that, where, you know, we need like lithium and we'll sell you a bunch of tomatoes and pigs for your lithium, whatever. It'd be really nice, but that's not how the real world works. In the real world, a lot of countries have a lot of industries, and those industries often grow to a point where they are competing on the world stage. Because just, you know, if Billy Bob's country in God knows where happens to need steel, for example, well, the U.S. makes steel, but the U.S. is not the only place that makes steel. China makes steel. A lot of other countries mine and produce iron and steel and aluminum and so on. So because all these countries are competing on the world stage, you know, you would think, well, okay, this is great. This is just, it's capitalist competition except on a global level. The problem is that it's not always fair. And whenever I, for example, have steel industry here that if we follow all the laws, you know, pay minimum wage, or whatever, you know, union, a lot of people don't realize that union wages are tied to minimum wage in a lot of places. So a minimum wage increase means a union wage increase, which is why places that have a lot of unionized workers, they have a nasty habit of also having higher and higher and higher minimum wages. The unions push for that because their wages are tied to minimum wage too. Wage increase, they'll get paid more if minimum wage goes up. So because of that, they have a compelling reason to crank the minimum wage up. Well, that also means that you have a minimum labor cost for items. Guess who doesn't have a minimum labor cost for items? Some other country somewhere who, let's just say they have similar amount of resources, but also effectively have slave labor. I'm not going to say the name, but there is a certain country out there that perhaps, let's just say, has suicide nets around their factories because their workers are worked to death, and to keep them from working to death and continue to force them to do their jobs, they have nets to catch them so that they can't actually die by jumping out of a window. And you, at your, $7.25 an hour minimum wage, let's say, are competing, you and the company that employs you at that price are competing with another company that has slave labor. So their labor price, their labor cost is minimal to nothing. Let's call it $1 an hour. So one country can do the same thing as the other country, except one of them saves $6 an hour on the labor. They let's just say that they're like 80% cheaper on the labor. Well, guess what that means? That means if the cost of the product is $100, and the labor is, half of the cost of the product, then that means that I have to sell it for $100 because I give my employees minimum wage and good working conditions and follow all the rules and regulations and codes and such. My product's $100, and this is assuming a lot. This is assuming that they do all that stuff too, minus the wage, which they don't. But just on the wage front, if their product is $60 while mine is $100. Now, if you're wherever or God knows Waristan, God knows where, let's just call it Waristan. So if you're Waristan, and you need steel, and you're going to buy steel from the United States or from China. I said I wasn't going to say it, but I said it. If China's is $60 and the United States is $100, what are you going to do? You're going to pay $60 instead of $100, because now you have 40 more bucks to spend on something else. And that something else could just be more steel. You can get more steel for the $100 now if you buy from the cheaper person. But that's the problem, is that they're not actually playing fair. They're basically abusing humans into the ground. They're grinding people into a meat grinder to produce steel. And that's not fair. Now, that's a problem on the world stage, but here's where it gets sinister. Let's say that we're talking about the local market and their market, and it might cost them a little more to export their stuff to us, like send it in a freighter overseas, but we're still paying our workers X, they're paying their workers a lot less than X, and so if it's $100 for us to sell it and $60 for them to sell it, what happens if we give them unfettered access to our markets? So we say, hey, you know, you sell steel, we sell steel, let's compete fairly. Let's not charge each other anything. Let's just sell our products on each other's markets and compete, and we'll have a fair competition, and whoever can produce the better product, you know, because the lowest price for the same product is the winner. Well, you're screwed, because now the people overseas who have the slaves and who have, 40% cheaper product in the end because of their abuses are now able to sell to your citizens at $60 instead of your citizens buying the steel that they're also making for $100. So your citizens save money. This is great. Cheap steel. Oh, this stuff is so much cheaper. We've saved so much money. Except here's the problem. Now, those steel mills and mines and factories, whatever, that are churning out the $100 steel, well, they're losing, because that's how competition works. That's how capitalism works. They're losing. Why are they losing? Because they're competing on a level playing field. They're competing in the global markets, in the free markets. Except it's not really a free market. These other people are doing something dirty to be able to get away with it. So if they're doing something that is reprehensible but makes their products cheaper, and let's ignore things like pollution or safety or whatever, they're breaking all these rules, and not rules necessarily, I mean, they get to make the rules, but they're treating their people poorly. They're harming their people to give you cheaper stuff. So if you buy their stuff, the mills around you close down. Those jobs that were here, well, now they're gone. Where'd they go? They went over there. They build more factories over there, put more bodies into the meat grinders over there, build more nets to catch the people trying to off themselves because of the horrible, abusive working conditions, or, just slave camps, whatever. But now you are essentially paying for all your neighbors to no longer have jobs. And for the cheap stuff that you're getting from this other country, now you're paying for those other people. The people overseas are being abused horribly. People around you are losing their jobs. And here's the problem with that. When you buy the steel, okay, you spend $60 on steel, and you get steel and they get your money. Well, you got the steel, but now they've got your money. And they can now, because they're building even bigger factories, they get more economies of scale. It can make it even cheaper. This would normally sound like a good thing, except the problem is now a lot of people around you don't have jobs to be able to buy the $60 steel. And how much steel does $0 buy? And this is the fundamental problem, that other markets are not fair. Maybe we have a global free market, but it's not a fair market. It is inherently a very unbalanced, unfair set of markets. Whoever can do the most shady stuff will win. Now, traditionally, leftists, Democrats, have, in the 90s, for example, were the loudest about this. They are the loudest about, oh, rich people are bad. We got to bring down the rich people. You know, all the wealth accumulation is bad. And yet you see the situation where all the wealth flows to another country, and that country enriches itself, you know, and it's everyone's loss. Their people suffer. Our people now, the money's being drained from the country, going to the other country. So now we don't have money here to buy the goods in the first place. And it's this downward spiral. So slowly over time, because in the beginning you got the cheap stuff and you saved money, your dollar went further. But long term, because so many fewer people are being productive, there is less value being created. There is money leaving the country, but it's not coming back to the country because now you're net importing. So all the wealth is going somewhere else, and you basically are robbing yourself and don't even realize it. See, because you're not buying the more expensive products, the cheaper products come in and siphon off all your wealth. And once they've siphoned off enough of your wealth, now you can't even buy the cheap products. That is where the United States is today. Even worse, now this is all assuming exclusively that, oh, they can just make it cheaper. Now throw the tariff monkey wrench into everything. See, the United States does not really apply any significant amount of tariffs. This is pretty much universally known at this point. But what's been happening is not only have other countries been potentially doing these abusive things to make their stuff cheaper, but they also, even the ones that haven't been doing the abusive things to make their stuff cheaper, have been applying tariffs to the United States exports. So, if I'm a citizen in this other country, the United States and Germany, for example, both of them sell steel that they make for $100. Well, the United States product, I don't know the tariff, but let's just say it's 20%. It's probably higher, whatever. But let's say it's 20%. Now the United States steel is roughly 120%. You know, it's probably a little higher than 120% once you add in some of the middleman stuff, but let's say it's 120% of the cost instead of 100%. Now, if you go to the store in Germany and you're a German, and the United States steel is 20% more money, you're going to buy the German steel, which means that money goes back into your local economy, which means you're paying your neighbor for the value that they've produced. In turn, let's say that neighbor comes to your supermarket or whatever. Now, say you work in a supermarket, the neighbor pays you, or your supermarket that you work for the work that you and the other people there produce. You know, you bring the goods together and all that. Or you're the farmer. You know, you make tomatoes and sell them to the guy that makes a steel, and the guy who makes a steel sells you the steel so you can build a bigger barn or whatever. But the point is that you've got this going on. Your money never leaves. Your value never leaves. When I create more value and he creates more value, we sell it to each other, we've both gained. You know, we both have produced and we both have effectively bartered and gained. But if I create more value and then this other guy doesn't create more value than I do, but they undercut me drastically in price by cheating, well, now, even though we've created the same amount of value, the guy beside me, he's not going to buy from me. He's going to buy from this other guy. I'm not going to get the money. So now when I try to, buy stuff from him that he makes for me, well, I don't have the money. And that's the problem. It's like with Germany, just in the example, Germany protects their local businesses by making imports more expensive, artificially so. Now, why would it be a problem then if the United States, for example, buys steel or has a steel industry, and then there's a steel industry overseas? Why would it be a problem that would cause prices to go up in the United States to put a tariff on imported steel? It would be a problem because we don't make enough steel here anymore. Because there's not enough supply to meet the demand. because we've allowed it all to be siphoned off to the other country. They built there, and what we had here shut down and is decomposing. So we are losing value here, both in the loss of capacity and the degrading of what we built to have that capacity. It'll take time and work and resources to get us back up to capacity. We have to impose tariffs to make the external goods too expensive so that they lose capacity over there, or bring the companies that have the capacity over there because it's cheaper, bring it back over here and build it up here. And yes, it does cause things to be more expensive in the short term. Yes, it is 100% factual to say that tariffs likely will cause things to be more expensive. But why are they more expensive? They're not more expensive because Donald Trump decided to screw you over, normal human being. They're more expensive because Donald Trump decided to put tariffs in place to get things to come back over here, and we don't have the capacity because the previous administrations gutted everything. That's why. The whole tariff thing is supposed to bring the industry back here, and it wouldn't be a problem to raise tariffs like that if it weren't for the fact that prior administrations gutted everything. Because they gutted everything, we now are in a nasty situation where we can't build stuff that we need because we send it overseas to be built where it's cheaper. But where it's cheaper is also one of our greatest enemies on the world stage. Does nobody see a problem with this? And what really drives me insane, look, I understand a lot of you don't like Donald Trump. I get it. You don't like Trump. Anything that Trump does, probably bad, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Except, really, just think for a second. How can you spend decades having this position where you see that China's a big threat and that we need to do something about all the wealth being siphoned off to China, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, no, we don't want to do that. That would be terrible because Trump suggested it. It's going to raise prices. Well, the reason it's going to raise prices is because you've allowed this stuff to happen in the first place. Had you not allowed the United States to be gutted, and basically what's going on right now is vultures are looting the corpse of the United States. That's what's been going on. And the thing that just makes it so difficult for so many people to fully understand why the tariffs are so necessary is that it's been going on for so long that a lot of you listening may not have even been alive when this stuff started happening. For my entire life, and I was born in the 80s, so I'm not some spring chicken. I'm not like a kiddo, I'm not a person that has just only been around for 25 years or whatever. I've been around for a while, and ever since I was a kid, I can remember things having made in China stickers all over them, and I do mean all over them. The China thing is before my time as a little kid. As far as I understand it, because I wasn't even around to understand it, the China thing has been happening since the 70s, possibly before that. But I haven't looked into all of the history behind it because, frankly, it doesn't matter that much. But to think that it's been going on so long that it is the normal for almost all of us in the United States. How did the people after World War II have so much success? How was there so much wealth? How was there such an economic boom? I mean, there are a lot of simplistic, stupid explanations for this kind of stuff. Like, they had a boom because the war ended, and when the war ended, it meant, people needed to build stuff. Well, that's not a good enough explanation. Somebody had to pay for it to be built. Where'd all that money come from? Where was that wealth that paid for the things to be built? That's it. It's so ridiculous to me. Like, somebody paid for all that stuff. Somebody, somewhere, paid for all this crap to happen. And we're just going to pretend like, no, the tariff situation's different. No, the tariff situation's not different at all. We've been in a different kind of war. We've been in a trade war. We've been in a trade war that China has been stomping us on, slowly but surely, for 40 or 50 years. We love to talk about the biggest redistribution of wealth ever during COVID, but we don't talk about the biggest redistribution of wealth ever on a global scale, where China, and India as well, but China is by far the bigger problem here, China and India have siphoned off so much of the United States wealth. The middle class has been gutted. You have to have an upper class in the United States because somebody's got to run things here. And those people, they hoard wealth because they see it being gutted. So of course they're going to be careful. You cannot just spend money if things are volatile. The bottom line is that the whole tariff thing is actually necessary. It's been necessary since probably before I was born. But because we have not taken action to protect our industries from being siphoned off by Weasley countries pulling all kinds of extremely unethical, immoral, evil trickery to make their stuff cheap on the global stage, well, you kind of get the idea. It's been going on so long that we don't know what a world is like without China looting our corpse for 50 years. And every time, it's not been a quick process. It's been very slow, which is why you don't notice it. But how long does it have to go on? Well, I think it needs to stop. It's needed to stop for a long time, and nobody would do anything about it. Now that someone's doing something about it, oh, it's a problem. Why is it a problem? It's not a problem because it's actually a problem. It's actually the exact thing that needs to happen. But it's a problem because it's politically a problem for the people who aren't politically aligned with the guy solving the problem. But I guarantee you, if it would never happen, but if this was done under Joe Biden, if this was done under Obama, you would have Democrats pounding down the doors going, yes, do it. And you'd probably have Republicans, because Republicans largely are losers too. Let's just be honest, a bunch of neocon idiots. The old school Republicans were a bunch of jackasses too, so the Republicans would be the kind of people that would oppose it in much the same way. It's all political theater. It's all a bunch of bullshit grandstanding. It doesn't matter what's right, it matters what your side says. But the thing is, Democrats and Republicans, many Democrats and Republicans and independents agree that what Trump is doing is right, that the country is headed in the right direction. The numbers in the polls for the direction the country's going are absolutely through the roof. It is basically impossible to say that the majority of Americans, by a pretty significant margin, disagree with Trump. I mean, that's the thing, is it's everybody knows that we've needed to do this, and it's happening. A lot of this stuff is it's like taking cough syrup. A lot of people don't like the taste of cough syrup. I'm not one of them. But a lot of people don't like the taste of medicine. There are a lot of medicines that have side effects that are quite unpleasant. But at the end of the day, you don't take the medicine because it makes you feel good. The medicine might temporarily make you feel worse. You take the medicine because it makes you no longer sick. It heals what is destroying you. It heals the thing that is in the process of potentially killing or crippling you. And that's what's going on right now. We are taking our economic cough syrup. That'll do it for me. I hope you've enjoyed my illustrious return to Rollin' Rambles, and I hope that this microphone has held up pretty well. It just occurred to me, I actually don't remember the model number of this microphone, and I feel really bad about it. So I'm just going to put it in editing. I'll put in what it is. I'll also provide a link to it in the description in case you are interested in buying it. And it's a pretty neat little piece of kit. Look out for my review of it at a later date. I'm still working on that, and this is part of that. Thanks for listening. Take it easy. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.